Hey guys, I'm super excited that you are joining me for Kid Connect at Home today. I have an exciting story for us from the Big God Story. So let's jump right in and learn all about how God is always at work. There once was a woman named Esther, who was a Jew, one of God's people. She lived in the kingdom of Persia, the same kingdom that Daniel had served in, like we talked about last week. The Jewish people had been conquered and sent to live in a faraway land, which made them sad. But God was going to show them that He is always at work, no matter where they lived and no matter what happened. In today's story, we're also going to hear about someone who tried to destroy God's people. It all began when the king of Persia, a man named Xerxes, decided he needed a new queen. King Xerxes' old queen had made him angry, so he sent her away. He just got rid of her, but now he needed a new queen. King Xerxes decided to hold a search, a contest, in fact, to choose the next queen. Many beautiful women from across the Persian Empire were brought to the palace, including Esther. Remember, Esther was a Jew, one of God's people, but no one else knew this. When it came time for Esther to go to the king decided he liked Esther more than any of the other women. And he wanted Esther to be his queen, his wife. So he gave her a royal crown and made her the queen. Meanwhile, all was not well in the rest of the kingdom. Esther's cousin Mordecai overheard two of the king's officials talking. They were angry, and they came up with a plan to kill King Xerxes. They were going to kill the king. But the Bible says Mordecai told Queen Esther what he heard, who then reported it to the king, telling him it was Mordecai who heard this. Even though Mordecai had uncovered the plot to kill King Xerxes, the king didn't do anything to thank Mordecai. But still, Mordecai knew that God is always at work. Esther 3:1-2 says, after these events, King Xerxes honored Haman. He's the bad guy, elevating him and giving him a seat of honor. All the royal officials at the king's gate knelt down and paid honor to Haman. But Mordecai would not kneel down or pay him honor. Do you remember the 10 commandments that were given to the Jews? The first commandment says that you shall have no other gods. The Jewish people who serve God only bowed in worship to Him, the one true God. And this made Haman very, very angry. Haman decided that because Mordecai wouldn't bow to him, he was going to look for a way to destroy all of the people who followed God, all of the Jews. So Haman went to talk to the king. He said, there is a certain people dispersed among the peoples in all the provinces of your kingdom who keep themselves separate. Their customs are different from those of all other people, and they do not obey the king's laws. It is not in the king's best interest to tolerate them. If it pleases the king, let a decree be issued to destroy them. The king agreed and basically told Haman to do whatever he wanted. That probably made Haman feel pretty good about himself. But guess who heard about this? Mordecai. He heard all about Haman's plot to kill all the Jews, so he sent a message to Esther. He told her how Haman had convinced the king to sign a decree to kill and destroy the Jews. Mordecai begged Esther to go to the king and beg for mercy for their people. But Esther responded by saying that anyone who tried to see the king without an invitation would be put to death. They couldn't just walk in, and they would only live if the king extended his gold scepter to them. But let's read what Mordecai had to say about that. He said, "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape. And who knows, but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this." Mordecai was saying that just because she was the queen didn't mean Esther was completely safe. Because remember, she was a Jew also. And just maybe, she was supposed to be the queen at this exact time for a reason, to help save the Jews. Esther said to gather all the Jews in the city and fast and pray for her for 3 days. After that, she was going to go see the king, even though it was against the law. So after 3 days, Esther went to King Xerxes' palace with a plan. When the king saw Esther, he was actually pleased, and he extended his gold scepter to her. The king asked Esther what she needed. He said up to even half the kingdom, he would give her whatever she wanted. So Esther decided to invite the king and Haman to a special dinner she was preparing. When it came time for dinner, Queen Esther decided not to tell King Xerxes about the Jews being in danger just yet. Instead, she invited the king and Haman back for a second special dinner the next day. Haman probably felt really good about himself, and when he left, he saw Mordecai. But remember, he didn't like Mordecai. He told all of his friends just how mad Mordecai made him, and they suggested that he have Mordecai killed. That night, King Xerxes couldn't sleep. He got out a book of records and remembered how Mordecai had saved his life. But since Mordecai wasn't honored for saving his life, the king decided it was time to do something special. So, in the morning, he asked Haman what he should do to honor someone special. Haman was probably thinking, of course he wants to honor me. Who else would it be? He suggested that the king hold a parade for him. Let him wear the king's robe and ride the king's finest horse so that everyone could see just how important he was. King Xerxes thought this was a great idea, so he told Haman to go lead a parade for Mordecai. Haman was probably furious. But after leading a parade for Mordecai, following the king's orders, Haman still had to go to dinner with the king and queen. Again, the king asked Esther about her request. This time, Esther answered, "If I have found favor with you, your majesty, and if it pleases you, grant me my life. This is my petition, and spare my people. This is my request. For I and my people have been sold to be destroyed." King Xerxes asked Queen Esther, "Who is he? Where is he, the man who has dared to do such a thing?" This is when Esther ratted Haman out and told the king that it was all his idea. King Xerxes was furious with Haman, and Haman was terrified. The king had Haman killed for what he did. And then he hired Mordecai to take Haman's place. And just like that, Haman lost and God's people won. But God's people weren't safe yet. Like with the story last week of Daniel in the lion's den, the king couldn't change a law, a decree, after it was already made. But God is always at work. God gave Mordecai a way to rescue his people. Mordecai told the Jews that on the day they were going to be attacked, that they had permission from the king to meet together and fight back. And that's just what happened. God's people, the Jews, fought back and they won. On the day they were supposed to die, they won a great victory. And they had a great feast afterward. Even today, the Jewish people celebrate the signing of King Xerxes' order as a holiday called Purim. On Purim, they remember God is always at work. So even when bad things happen, like Haman's law, God is always working for his people. He's always on their side. And he's working to bring good even out of bad situations. Even though everything seemed like it was against God's people in this part of the big God story, what do we know about God? That God is always at work. God's plan to help his people remained even though Haman tried to hurt the Jews. Do you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of our remember verse. It says, "Many are the plans in a person's heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails." It is so clear that God is always at work in our lives. Though bad things happen sometimes, and we might wonder why, God can work in both bad things and good things to bring good to his people. We can trust that God is always working in our lives to take good care of us because we're his kids. Because of this, we can also step out in our faith and serve him and others in unlikely ways, just like Queen Esther was called to do. Remember, Mordecai said, "Maybe you're here for a reason, just like this." Queen Esther may not have understood why God wanted her to be queen or why she was picked to be queen, but if she wasn't the queen, the Jews wouldn't have lived. We are able to be bold, just like Queen Esther, because God is always at work. So have a fantastic week, and I'll see you guys next time.